Okay, guys, here we are on the 23rd of October. It's Wednesday. It's about 11:30 mid-morning here. We'll do an update on Link to the dollar tether. This was the individual coin that got the most votes. We're going to look at total. We're going to look at total 2 and Bitcoin D coming up shortly here. But yeah, there's a little bit of a disappointment here. So all of crypto is selling off today. Seems to be tied to Zuckerberg's testimony before Congress. So everything getting a reactionary sell-off, that seems to be what's the trigger event here. So, but just to get some review here. Now swing low, swing high, right in linear, we're well through the golden zone. But since we've got a low here of 34 cents and a high of $4, we certainly have the conditions that would warrant a look at it in log. So we can see here, this helps we kind of pop out. Impulse up, the ABC down, we bump right into this structure. Pretty textbook here. So you get a low volume node here, no market acceptance, so that supports it, and off we go. So what we can focus on here is off of this September 24th pivot low. So here, let's zoom in on this a bit here. We can get all of this action. All right, so let's open this up a bit. Now, so a bit of a disappointment here. We had been looking at this, the idea that we had a 1, 2, 3 had gone in. We were down for the 4, and we were looking for the 5 to get up. And then, of course, we don't get that today. Now, so sometimes market's just not going to cooperate. I think that was a very reasonable expectation to go 1, 2 into the 3. And partly, here, let's clean this up a little bit. Get some of this off. Okay, so partly in here, part of the was guiding that thought process is length of the 1 from the proposed pivot 2. We had gone right into our high probability zone for a 3. So at that time, very reasonable expectation that we had put in the 3. We get the little retrace, and so we don't get it. Now, so looking at that, you can look here as well and say, okay, well, I've got a little drive here that gets me to the 1272. Not unreasonable at this point to put the 3 here now. Think, oh, perhaps I've got the 4 and the 5. So the symmetry is not as good. Just looking at the size of the 2 relative to the 4. But I mean, certainly it's not disqualifying. So given the depth of the retracement here, seems much more likely that now we've got a very, let's go to an hourly, very clear ABC. So we can just label this up, right? Now, are we done yet? Well, that remains to be seen here. So just open this up a bit. Now, we can't eliminate the possibility, since this is, I mean, it's all right. But we can't eliminate the possibility here that we just have an ABC. So I don't think we need to go there, but you just need to be mindful that that's certainly a possibility. So we could have well, let's look at the height of it. So we could have a WXY into this pivot here. We could have another ABC into an X and be going into another ABC. So, but we don't need to complicate just yet. My point being that if this is going to end up being a completed impulse, granted not the prettiest one ever, the ABC here looks much more like a second. So if we grab that here, we've come, what did we get there? Well, that's the other one. Let's pull that off. Yeah, looks like we might have gotten the 707 there. Right, yeah, so we do. So 707 square root of 50. So that's common. You'll see that if we're going to break the 65, that's a spot to look for if you get a reaction off of that. Hard to know for sure. It's just I'm starting to see that more and more, as this is now becoming so much more widely known here. So the ABC fairly clear. The depth of this would imply that if this is going to stay, if we're going to stay on this bullish trend, that the 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. All right, let's get these up a degree. It's not unreasonable, right? I don't love this. Now there's also this framing here that you guys may have already teed up. All right, so always want to try and get some market geometry around a pivot like this. So we get right on it. Yeah, that's pretty tight. Okay, so we get right up to this, and note here, I feel like that was a little tighter. Yeah, that's pretty darn tight. Okay, let's pull that off. right on those pivots. Okay, so we come up right to the edge here. Now down, this is something that you'll see quite often, right? So if we break so since we didn't get a pause here, it's really all set up for it, right? You had the structure here, you had everything you might have been looking for. So we don't get the pause at the median line. We go through and then it's back. It's much like a channel. It's testing from below. So we get the retest here. This structure seems to be at play, and you can actually pull this all the way over, right, and fatten it up a little bit. So look at these, right, as an area where you might anticipate some resistance. Plus we've got from the pivot right to the 50. So now we've gone second target here. So you can understand this. Now, I mean, we're awfully deep. So I think you can maintain the 2 here yet until, you know, if this is going to start to break down further. So if we're just going through a process of down and then retrace and then down again, well, this count is going to break down pretty substantially here. Now the clear invalidation point is here. We can't go below that 2. But the 3 here is solid enough that I think you can stay with the 1, 2, you know, being mindful of the alternate. Now this, you know, I don't know that that's helping us any here. So this has been realized. So we're just kind of looking for what else do we have here to work with. Well, just zooming out a little bit. So here's our low. You can kind of just look along here. It looks like there's a trend line and perhaps even a channel to support it. So just grabbing the low here and just connecting all of these pivots. So you can see what I'm doing down here. Just I've got pivot, pivot, pivot here. Yeah, we don't make it here, but I'm getting the most number of connections. Now I'm going to go right to this pivot here. Seems like I can get this here. Yeah, now the trend, trading view here, unless I extend it to the left, but it leaves all of this up here. So you guys have seen me do this before. We could either do it through a fib channel, but just kind of a quick, easy way to do it is just clone the channel. So we bring that up. Right, so that's how I would do it, allowing for a little throw over here. We don't need to go all the way up. So I get this, you know, channel seems to be framing the market, but this is the key trend line here, the lower edge of it. Is there a trade? Well, I don't think you need to rush into anything. Okay, given what Bitcoin's doing today, we need to see that stabilize here. I wouldn't. I need a little more. See, even going down to the 15-minute. So you'd be making the assumption that we're in the process after the correction. We're trying to get into the 1 and then the 2 of the 3rd to get that kind of a thing going. Doesn't quite look like we're done here. You know, and you'd be buying into, remember, there's going to be plenty of sell side resistance on the way back, and we have this pattern that we know the algos respond to, so we get this kind of action. So the retrace here to that next 50 is certainly one to pay attention to, looking for some resistance. Excuse me. So kind of looking at that, I'd want to see how we respond up here. Right, this whole section kind of ripe for a potential retrace yet again. So here we can get a better look at this impulse, and you can see the symmetry really is not ideal given the length of the 1, the 2, and then yeah, we can get enough here, and you can get the impulse there. 3 A, B, C, and the 4. We end up with a, yeah, you got to do it this way because we get a double. Well, we have a double bottom, but this is a tick lower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, you know, with the exception of the symmetry where the 4 and the 2 is not ideal, I think you can still hang on to that as our 1 off of the proposed 2 low down here. But you got to think about what kind of shape this is going to need to take to really get more comfortable with that. So if this is the 2 and we're going up for the 3, so let's map it out. Okay, so these all have to go much higher. Get out of here. Much higher. Okay, so let's see about a roadmap. And then kind of thinking about where the right time to get onto this. So if this is going to hold as our 2 and the 1, 2 is in, well, just standard stuff here. We'd take the length of the 1. Okay, so just using our high probability zones. So we got a long way to go here. Interesting how that would tee up with the channel. Bring us back down here. And maybe we're up again for a 5. So just kind of map that out. So we got to get all the way up, do something like that. Okay, so this is the 3. Let's think about the 4. So we'd wick off this 1. All right, so in the midst of this, we need an impulse. So if this pivot low is in, we're gonna, all right, so, you know, that 1 is gonna need to take shape, right? Maybe we got to start. I'm down on the 15-minute, right? Which I prefer not to go down to this level unless I'm trying to dig something out. So is that enough? I just don't see enough there because let's just think about it, right? So we're going to need a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just free drawing, but you can kind of get the idea that subdivision is really going to need to break open to where we can see it. So this, you're buying into the hope that the 1 is here after the shaky impulse here. For me, it's just not good enough. Now, let me see a clear motive here and then take the next retrace. Then I'm much more comfortable with that. This is a little bit of a roll of the dice. Man, maybe it goes. But even if it does, right? If we get up here, we're going to get a 1. Let's say we get through the sell side algos that'll be there. We know they're going to be there. So if we get through that, at some point, the people that roll the dice here and get this move, there's the temptation to take profit, particularly as we come up to some of this prior resistance, is going to be, it's certainly going to be something that will be on the minds of the traders that catch this. That's what often will cause the retrace. So if we get up here, this trade I like, right? This is the trade I think is worth waiting for. This one, yeah, it could go. Sure. You know, but do you want to bet on that? I mean, again, there's so many things to trade. Why take a so setup? Do you even have a setup? You're just operating on the assumption that the low is in, right? That we've done this. We got 100%. Okay, that's a good sign. So for an ABC, this is your most common, the 100, 1272 second most common. So you've got a nice technical pivot here. As I said, so that's kind of interesting that we get the 50 and the 707 right within a tick of each other. Right, so if you're going to get confluence, that's kind of nice to see. So we get the 50s. That makes sense, right? You can understand it, but that's just not enough yet for me, right, to want to take that. And particularly at this point, now you're kind of chasing it. So again, I know this gets crowded here, but we're coming right up to the 50. I don't want to buy going right into a 50 or a golden zone. So if it were to bump its head there and we were to come up into that 50 and then retrace, well, now you're down to the 5-minute trying to dig a motive wave out of that. I think you got to give this a little bit more room to cook. Let me see that motive coming out of here so I know I've got a 1. So my 1-2-1-2 scenario, I feel much better about buying it here after that's confirmed. Right now, I kind of have a failed, I mean, yeah, we can squeeze out the impulse here, but really, you can make a case that it was really a failure swing that's being harshly corrected now, given the extreme, the depth of that going 707. This, I'd wait for. I wouldn't, Bitcoin doing what it's doing. I'd wait to see that come down. Then this, yeah, then I'm all over that. All right, guys, there you go. Okay, back.